My name is Justina, and I am 34 years old. For 2 years, I saved every penny for my dream vacation to Hawaii. Growing up as the forgotten child in my family with my sister Brooke, always being the golden one, I thought this vacation would finally be something just for me. What I didn't expect was my family hijacking my carefully planned getaway for my sister and her kids. But this time, I had a secret plan of my own. Before I tell you how my family almost ruined what should have been my dream vacation, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had your plans hijacked by family members. I have always been the black sheep in my family. While my older sister Brooke received endless praise and support, I was expected to figure things out on my own. Despite this imbalance, I managed to build a successful career as a software developer at a prestigious tech company in Seattle. Brooke is 38, married to Daniel, and has 3 children: Emma age 10, Jackson age 8, and Lily age 6. Throughout our lives, she has been the center of our parents' universe. When we were growing up, she received new clothes while I got hand-me-downs. She got the newest model of phone while I inherited her old one. She received help with college tuition while I worked multiple jobs to pay my way through school. Our parents, Thomas and Margaret, have consistently prioritized Brooke's needs and wants above mine. I remember my 16th birthday when they canceled my small party because Brooke, then 20, had a minor breakup with her boyfriend and needed emotional support. Or when they missed my college graduation because Brooke's oldest child had a kindergarten play on the same day. These patterns continued into adulthood. When Brooke needed help with a down payment on her house, our parents emptied part of their retirement fund to assist. When I needed a loan to fix my car after an accident, they suggested I should have saved better for emergencies. Despite all this, I maintained a relationship with my family, attending weekly Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. I learned to lower my expectations and accept that this was just how things were in our family. 2 years ago, after a particularly stressful project at work, I decided I needed something to look forward to. I had never taken a real vacation as an adult, always using my time off for family obligations or short weekend trips. I deserved something special, and Hawaii had always been my dream destination. I created a savings plan, cutting unnecessary expenses and picking up freelance coding projects on weekends. I opened a separate vacation account and watched it grow month by month. I worked overtime whenever possible, putting the extra money directly into my Hawaii fund. During those 2 years, I researched everything about Hawaii. I joined online forums, bought guidebooks, and connected with travel bloggers who specialized in Hawaiian vacations. I created spreadsheets comparing different islands, resorts, and activities. I wanted this trip to be perfect. The vacation would coincide with my 35th birthday and celebrate my recent promotion to senior developer. After years of burnout and stress, I was finally going to prioritize myself. I booked a beachfront suite at a luxury resort on Maui, scheduled a helicopter tour of the islands, reserved spots for snorkeling excursions, and planned hiking trips to see waterfalls. I even splurged on first-class plane tickets. One evening, while finalizing my bookings, I called my best friend Melissa to share my excitement. I finally did it. Everything is booked for Hawaii. 10 days of pure paradise. I told her, unable to contain my joy. That sounds amazing, Justina. You absolutely deserve this. Are you going to tell your family about it? Melissa asked cautiously. Of course I'm planning to tell them at Sunday dinner this weekend. I know they will be happy for me, I replied confidently. Melissa paused before responding. Just be careful. Remember what happened when you told them about your promotion? Your mom immediately asked if you could help pay for Brooke's kitchen renovation. I know, but this is different. It is just a vacation. What could they possibly say? I brushed off her concerns. I hope you are right, Melissa said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. Looking back, I wish I had listened to her warning. Instead, I spent the next few days daydreaming about white sand beaches, crystal clear water, and 10 days of freedom from family obligations and workplace stress. Sunday family dinner at my parents' suburban home was a tradition we had maintained for years. That particular evening in early spring, the house smelled of pot roast and freshly baked rolls as I arrived carrying a bottle of wine and my Hawaiian travel itinerary neatly printed in a folder. My parents' home hadn't changed much since my childhood. The same floral couch sat in the living room, though now slightly faded. Family photos lined the walls, mostly featuring Brooke and her children, with a few obligatory shots of me scattered among them. "Auntie Justina!" My nieces and nephew ran to greet me as I entered. Despite the complicated relationship with their mother, I genuinely loved these kids and always brought them small gifts when I visited. "I brought something for each of you," I said, pulling out 3 small packages from my bag. Comic books for Jackson, hair accessories for Emma, and stickers for Lily. "What no presents for your favorite sister," Brooke joked as she entered the room, giving me a quick hug. She looked tired, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater. "Maybe next time," I replied with a smile, trying to keep things light. Our father emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Just in time, Justina. Your mother is about to put everything on the table." Dinner proceeded as usual with discussions about the kids' school activities, Daniel's work, and neighborhood gossip. I waited until dessert was served before clearing my throat nervously. "I have some exciting news to share," I announced, unable to contain my smile. "I finally booked my dream vacation to Hawaii. I have been saving for 2 years, and I am going for 10 days in July to celebrate my birthday and my promotion." Initially, the response seemed positive. "Hawaii? That sounds wonderful, dear," my mother said, though her smile seemed slightly strained. "10 days is quite a long trip," my father commented, raising an eyebrow. "How much did all that cost?" Brooke asked directly while cutting a piece of chocolate cake for Lily. I hesitated before answering. "It was expensive, but I have been saving specifically for this. I wanted to do it right." "And you are going all by yourself?" my mother questioned, exchanging a quick glance with my father that I had seen many times before. It was the look they shared when formulating a plan. "Yes, that is the whole point. A solo vacation to relax and recharge," I explained. "Hawaii is such a family place, though," my father commented. "Seems a waste to go alone." The children, who had been half listening to the adult conversation, suddenly perked up. "Hawaii like where Moana lives?" Lily asked excitedly. "Can we go to Hawaii too, Mommy?" Emma looked at Brooke with hopeful eyes. "Hawaii has volcanoes and surfing," Jackson added enthusiastically. Brooke sighed dramatically. "I wish we could, kids, but vacations like that are for people without responsibilities. When you have children, fancy trips become impossible." I felt my stomach tighten as I recognized her passive-aggressive comment for what it was. My mother reached over and patted Brooke's hand sympathetically. "It has been so long since you and Daniel had a proper vacation, hasn't it?" she said. 5 years, Brooke replied quickly. "Not since before Lily was born. We just never seem to have the time or money with 3 kids." The conversation shifted entirely to how hard it was for Brooke and Daniel to travel with children, the high cost of family vacations, and how they really deserved a break. My exciting announcement had been completely hijacked, and my vacation was no longer the focus. As the evening drew to a close, I helped clean up while trying to recapture some of my earlier enthusiasm. "Your trip sounds lovely, Justina," my mother said as she handed me dishes to dry. "Though I can't help thinking how perfect Hawaii would be for the children. They have never seen the ocean." "Mom, this is my vacation. I have been planning it for 2 years," I reminded her gently. "Of course, dear. I understand," she replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. "We will talk more about it soon." The drive home was filled with a growing sense of unease. The excitement I had felt earlier was replaced with anxiety as I replayed the dinner conversation in my mind. When my phone rang at 11:30 that night, displaying my mother's name, my heart sank. Justina, I have been thinking about your vacation, she began without preamble. What if you shared your trip with Brooke and her family? It would be such a wonderful experience for the children, and you know your sister and Daniel really need a break. Mom, I planned this as a solo trip. I need this time for myself, I protested. But you are just one person, and there would be 6 of you if they joined. It makes more sense to share the experience. Family should come first, Justina. I ended the call as quickly as possible, promising to think about it, but already feeling my dream vacation slipping through my fingers. The following evening, I had just changed into comfortable clothes after work when my doorbell rang. Opening the door revealed my parents and Brooke standing in the hallway of my apartment building. My heart immediately sank. What a surprise, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I wasn't expecting anyone tonight. We wanted to talk to you in person about Hawaii, my mother explained as they filed into my small apartment. Brooke was carrying a bottle of wine and wearing what I recognized as her persuasion outfit, the one she wore when trying to get her way. We brought your favorite wine, my father said, holding up a bottle that was definitely not my favorite. I reluctantly invited them to sit down in my living room, noting how they immediately made themselves comfortable in my space without waiting for an invitation. My mother took the lead, her voice taking on the reasonable tone she used when trying to convince someone of something. Justina, we have been talking, and we have a wonderful proposal for you, she began, smiling broadly. Instead of going to Hawaii alone, which would be so lonely, you could turn this into a memorable family vacation with Brooke, Daniel, and the kids. Brooke leaned forward, her eyes suddenly watery. You have no idea how much this would mean to us, Justina. The kids have been through so much this year with changing schools, and Daniel and I are just exhausted. A family vacation would be exactly what we need to reconnect. I felt my throat tighten. But I have been planning this trip for myself for 2 years. Everything is already booked for one person. That is why we are here now, so we have plenty of time to make changes, my father explained. Your mother called your hotel today, and they said they could easily accommodate a change to a larger suite or connecting rooms. The fact that my mother had called my hotel without my permission sent a wave of anger through me, but I tried to remain calm. The resort is very expensive. It would cost thousands more for all of you, I pointed out. Well, since it was your idea to go to Hawaii, we thought you would cover the accommodations since you already budgeted for that, my mother replied smoothly. Brooke and Daniel would pay for their flights and food. I stared at them in disbelief. So, you want me to pay for a luxury suite for all of us? That would be triple what I planned to spend. Family helps family, Justina, my father said firmly. You have a good job with no dependents. Brooke has 3 children to support. It only makes sense that you would contribute more. Brooke's eyes filled with tears again. The kids have been so excited since they heard about Hawaii. Emma has already been researching sea turtles for a project, and Jackson has been practicing holding his breath for snorkeling. Her voice cracked with emotion. I just don't know how I would tell them they can't go. The manipulation was so transparent, yet I still felt myself wavering. Years of conditioning to put my sister's needs before my own was hard to overcome. This is a lot to process, I said, feeling my chest tighten with anxiety. I need time to think. What is there to think about? My mother asked, her smile fading. This is a chance to create beautiful memories with your nieces and nephew. Don't you want them to have this experience? Of course I do, but this trip was supposed to be for me, I insisted, my voice rising slightly. You are being selfish, Justina, my father stated flatly. Family comes first, you know that. The word selfish hit me like a physical blow. It was the label they had always used whenever I tried to prioritize my own needs. If you truly loved your nieces and nephew, this wouldn't even be a question, Brooke added, wiping away a tear. For the next hour, they continued their assault on my boundaries using every emotional manipulation tactic in their arsenal. They brought up past instances when they had been there for me, though I struggled to recall any specific examples. They reminded me of family obligations and loyalty. They made veiled comments about my single status and how I couldn't possibly understand the challenges of parenthood. By the end of their visit, I felt physically ill. My hands were shaking and a migraine was forming behind my eyes. To make them leave, I finally agreed to consider their proposal and look into changing my bookings. "I knew you would understand," my mother said triumphantly as they prepared to leave. "We will talk details later this week." After closing the door behind them, I collapsed onto my couch, tears streaming down my face. The vacation I had dreamed about for years was being stolen from me, and I had been made to feel guilty for even wanting it in the first place. With shaking hands, I called Melissa. "They ambushed me," I said as soon as she answered. "They want to take over my vacation." "I am coming over," she replied without hesitation. "Don't agree to anything until I get there." Melissa arrived at my apartment 30 minutes later with a bottle of red wine and a determined expression. Finding me still on the couch, eyes red from crying, she immediately poured 2 glasses and sat beside me. "Tell me everything," she said, handing me a tissue. I recounted the ambush visit, the manipulation tactics, and how they expected me to pay for luxury accommodations for everyone. "This is absolutely insane," Melissa declared after listening. "But unfortunately not surprising given your family's history." She was right. This wasn't the first time my family had steamrolled my boundaries. There was the time they volunteered me to host Christmas for 15 people in my 1-bedroom apartment. Or when they signed me up to create a website for my uncle's business for free, telling him I would be happy to help without consulting me first. Or the countless times they expected me to babysit my nieces and nephew with no notice. "Remember when I bought my new car last year?" I asked Melissa. 2 days later, Brooke called asking if she could have my old one for free since I wasn't using it anymore, even though I had already arranged to sell it. "And when you got food poisoning at your birthday dinner, but your parents still made you drive Brooke home because she had 1 glass of wine," Melissa added. As we talked, a realization crystallized in my mind. This pattern is never going to stop unless I do something about it. Melissa nodded emphatically. "Exactly. And this vacation is where you need to draw the line." "But how they won't take no for an answer. They never do," I said, feeling defeated. Melissa's eyes suddenly lit up. "What if you don't say no? What if you appear to go along with their plan but actually keep your original vacation?" I stared at her, not comprehending at first. "What do you mean?" "A secret escape plan," Melissa explained, sitting up straighter. "Tell them you are rearranging everything for a family vacation, but don't actually change your original bookings. Give them different dates, different information." The idea was so devious and so perfect that I couldn't help but laugh. "That's brilliant, but also terrifying. If they find out, you will be no worse off than you are now with them trying to hijack your vacation," Melissa pointed out. "But if it works, you get your dream trip exactly as planned." We spent the next few hours developing the strategy. First, I called my travel agent Lucy, explaining the situation and confirming that all my original bookings were secure and non-refundable, which was actually a relief in this situation. "Don't worry, Justina. Your reservations are locked in. No one can change them except you," Lucy assured me. Next, I created a decoy itinerary to present to my family. Instead of my luxurious 10-day vacation in July, I would tell them I had rescheduled for a 7-day trip in August at a more family-friendly resort that was significantly less expensive. "The key is to make their options seem less appealing but still possible," Melissa advised. "That way, if they back out, it seems like their choice." The next day, I sent my family an email with the new family-friendly options, emphasizing the reduced quality compared to my original plan. Unfortunately, the luxury resort I booked doesn't have any larger accommodations available, so I found a more modest hotel that can accommodate all of us. It's not on the beach, but it's only a 15-minute walk. The complaints started immediately. My mother called within the hour. Justina, these accommodations look very basic. I thought you said you booked a luxury resort? And what about the ocean view you mentioned? I had to cancel that booking, Mom. They couldn't accommodate 6 people on those dates, and the larger suites were already booked. I explained, trying to sound disappointed. This was the best alternative I could find that fits everyone. More calls followed. Brooke was concerned about the hotel's pool being too small for her children. My father thought the new hotel looked cheap in the online photos. None of them, however, offered to find or pay for better accommodations. During a family meeting to discuss the new vacation plans, I strategically presented a budget breakdown that put them on the hook for more expenses than they had anticipated. Since we're all going on this trip together, I think it's fair that we split the costs evenly, I suggested innocently. I've calculated each adult's share to be approximately $2,000 plus airfare. $2,000 each? My father exclaimed. That seems excessive for a family-friendly hotel. Hawaii is expensive, Dad, I replied calmly. And that includes some of the activities I've pre-booked for everyone. We thought you would be covering the hotel since you were going anyway, my mother interjected. I feigned confusion. But my original hotel was just a small room for one person. This new booking is completely different and much more expensive overall, even if the quality is lower. It wouldn't be fair for me to pay for everyone. The meeting ended with my family looking dissatisfied, but still determined to join my vacation. They reluctantly agreed to the costs, but continued to press for upgrades and changes that would make the trip more luxurious without increasing their contribution. As the weeks passed, I became increasingly confident in my secret plan. I provided my family with misinformation about flight details, telling them we would all be on the same flights, but giving them incorrect times and confirmation numbers. I'll email you the actual boarding passes closer to the departure date, I promised. The airline system is still finalizing the group booking. While I felt guilty about the deception, I reminded myself that this was about self-preservation. For years, I had allowed my family to prioritize Brooke's wants and needs above my own. This vacation was where I would finally stand up for myself, even if they didn't know it yet. The guilt was occasionally overwhelming. Was I being selfish? Should I just give in and have the family vacation they wanted? But then, I would remember all the times I had compromised, all the times my needs had been dismissed, and my resolve would strengthen. This isn't about being selfish, Melissa reminded me during one moment of doubt. This is about finally taking care of yourself for once. You've earned this vacation, Justina. With my real vacation less than a month away, and my fake family vacation supposedly scheduled for the following month, I was both anxious and excited about executing my escape plan. As my actual departure date approached, I implemented the next phase of my plan. 1 week before I was set to leave, I called a family meeting to discuss final vacation details. I have some news about the trip, I announced, trying to look appropriately serious. My boss just informed me that I need to attend a work conference in Honolulu the week before our vacation. Since I'll already be in Hawaii, the company is paying for my flight there, so I'll just meet you all when you arrive. The reaction was immediate and suspicious. A conference? You never mentioned this before, my father said, narrowing his eyes. It just came up, I explained. It's actually perfect timing because I can scout out some activities for us before you all arrive. Can't you reschedule the conference? My mother asked. We were looking forward to flying together as a family. It's mandatory for all senior developers, I lied, feeling only slightly guilty. But don't worry, I'll meet you at the airport when you land and drive us all to the hotel. Brooke looked particularly displeased. So, you get to spend extra time in Hawaii while we're stuck at home? That doesn't seem fair. It's for work, Brooke, I reminded her firmly. I'll be in conference rooms all day, not enjoying the beach. Despite their attempts to change my mind, I stood firm. Work was the one excuse they couldn't easily argue with, as it was the source of income that they were counting on to help fund their vacation. The next week was a flurry of preparation. I packed carefully, making sure I had everything I needed for my real luxury vacation. I scheduled a mail hold at the post office, arranged for a neighbor to water my plants, and set up automatic social media posts to maintain the illusion that I was at a work conference. The night before my departure, I had dinner with Melissa. "Are you ready for Operation Escape?" she asked with a grin. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. "I still can't believe I'm actually doing this." "I'm so proud of you," Melissa said sincerely. "This is long overdue." The next morning, I said goodbye to my family with promises to see them soon in Hawaii. My mother hugged me tightly. "Send us updates from your conference," she said, "and make sure to find some good restaurants for when we arrive." "I will," I promised, knowing I would actually be sending them carefully crafted messages from my beachfront suite. At the airport, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see a family member who had decided to surprise me with a send-off. But no one appeared, and soon I was through security and waiting at my gate. When the plane took off, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was doing something entirely for myself, without compromise or guilt. The 6-hour flight to Maui passed quickly as I alternated between napping and reading the Hawaiian guidebook I had been studying for months. Stepping off the plane in Kahului Airport, I was immediately enveloped by warm, fragrant air. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and the airport's open-air design allowed me to feel the Hawaiian atmosphere immediately. "Welcome to Maui," the smiling attendant said as she draped a traditional lei around my neck. "Thank you," I replied, feeling tears spring to my eyes. I had made it. I was actually here. The drive to my resort along the coast was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Crystal blue waters stretched to the horizon on one side, while lush green mountains rose on the other. I kept the windows down, breathing in the salt air, and feeling truly free. Checking into my beachfront suite at the luxury resort was a dream come true. The room was even more spectacular than the photos, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, a king-sized bed draped in fine linens, and a private lanai where I could watch the sunset. "Would you like a complimentary champagne while I complete your check-in?" the receptionist asked. "Yes, please," I responded, unable to stop smiling. That first evening, I walked barefoot along the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I had a dinner reservation at the resort's acclaimed restaurant where I enjoyed fresh-caught fish and tropical cocktails while listening to live ukulele music. Back in my room, I sent a carefully worded message to my family. "Arrived safely in Honolulu. Conference schedule is packed tomorrow. Will update when I can." Then I turned off my phone and slept more peacefully than I had in months. The next day was filled with everything I had dreamed of: a sunrise yoga class on the beach, a luxurious massage at the resort spa, and an afternoon catamaran cruise where I saw whales breaching in the distance. On the cruise, I met a friendly couple from Colorado, Lisa and Mark, who invited me to join them for dinner. For once, I didn't have to consider family obligations or feel guilty about enjoying myself. I simply said yes. Over dinner, I found myself opening up to these strangers about my life and my secret vacation plan. "Good for you," Lisa said emphatically after hearing my story. "Boundaries are essential even with family, especially with family." Mark nodded in agreement. "Sometimes you have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help others." Their validation made me feel even more confident in my decision. The next day, I went hiking to a secluded waterfall, took a surfing lesson, and watched the sunset from my private lanai with a glass of wine and a heart full of contentment. As my real vacation continued, I maintained the charade with my family, sending occasional messages about my fictitious conference while actually living my best life on Maui. "The conference is going well, very busy," Can't wait for you all to arrive next month. I texted my mother. Little did I know that my carefully constructed plan was about to face its greatest test. My vacation was halfway over and had been absolute paradise so far. I had moved to my second resort on the other side of the island, as planned, a smaller but equally luxurious property nestled in a lush tropical garden. This strategic location change was part of my original plan to further distance myself from any possibility of my family tracking me down. That morning, I had enjoyed a private guided hike through a bamboo forest, followed by a swim beneath a waterfall. Returning to my room to shower before dinner, I made the mistake of briefly turning on my phone to check emails. A barrage of notifications immediately flooded my screen. Multiple missed calls from my parents and Brooke, dozens of increasingly frantic text messages, and several voicemails. My stomach dropped as I opened the first message from my mother. Justina, we decided to surprise you by coming to Hawaii early. We're at the Honolulu airport now, but can't find your conference hotel. Call immediately. My hands shook as I listened to the voicemails, each one more demanding than the last. We've been waiting at the airport for 3 hours. Where are you? My father's angry voice demanded. The kids are tired and cranky, and there's no sign of you. This is completely irresponsible, Brooke complained in her message. The final voicemail, time-stamped just an hour ago, made my blood run cold. We found out there's no developers conference in Honolulu this week. What game are you playing? Justina, your father is furious. I sat on the edge of my bed, panic rising in my chest. Somehow my family had decided to show up a month early, likely hoping to surprise me and join my fictional work conference for some extra vacation time. Quickly scrolling through more messages, I discovered they had eventually checked into a budget hotel in Honolulu after failing to locate me. My sister had posted an angry rant on social media about being abandoned in Hawaii with 3 exhausted children. I immediately called Melissa, my hands still shaking. They're in Hawaii, I whispered frantically when she answered. They showed up a month early to surprise me. Oh my God, Melissa replied, sounding as shocked as I felt. What are you going to do? I don't know. They're in Honolulu and I'm on Maui. They've discovered there's no conference. They're furious. Stay calm, Melissa advised. They're on a different island. They can't just show up at your door. You need to buy yourself time. Following her advice, I sent a brief message to my family, claiming poor cell reception and promising to call later. Then I turned off my phone again and tried to think. I considered my options. I could confess everything and face their wrath. I could pretend some emergency had called me away from the conference. Or I could continue with my original plan and enjoy the rest of my vacation. After an hour of anxious deliberation, I decided on the third option. I had come too far to give up now. I would continue my vacation as planned, but take extra precautions. The next morning, I checked out of my current resort a day early and moved to a third location, a small boutique hotel that wasn't part of my original itinerary. I paid in cash and used my middle name when checking in. For the next 2 days, I kept my phone off, only checking messages once daily from the hotel's business center computer. The updates from my family grew increasingly hostile. They had discovered through my mother's friend, who worked at an airline, that I had flown to Maui, not Honolulu. They were trying to figure out where exactly I was staying. My anxiety was tempered somewhat by the support of a couple I met at my new hotel's breakfast buffet. After hearing a condensed version of my situation, they were firmly on my side. Families can be so boundary challenged, said Diane, a retired therapist. You have every right to take this vacation for yourself. Her husband Jim nodded in agreement. They imposed on your plans and then got upset when things didn't go their way. That's on them, not you. Their validation helped, but I still jumped every time I saw a family with children enter the hotel lobby, fearing it might be Brooke and her kids. On what should have been one of my final blissful vacation days, my worst fears materialized. I was enjoying dinner at the hotel's outdoor restaurant when I heard a familiar voice that made my blood freeze. Justina, there you are? My father was standing at the restaurant entrance, his face red with anger. A hotel staff member was trying to block his entry, but he pushed past. "Sir, please, you need to be a registered guest to enter this area," the staff member protested. I sat paralyzed as my father approached my table, other diners turning to stare at the commotion. "3 days we've been looking for you," he shouted, ignoring the stares. "Your mother is beside herself with worry. Brooke's kids are devastated." The restaurant manager quickly appeared. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice or leave the premises." "This is my daughter," my father said, pointing at me. "She abandoned her family in Hawaii after promising us a vacation." I finally found my voice. "Dad, you weren't supposed to be here until next month. I never abandoned anyone. You lied about the conference. You've been here enjoying yourself while we've been stranded in a terrible hotel with 3 disappointed children." Something inside me snapped. Years of suppressed feelings and resentment bubbled to the surface. I stood up, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Yes, I lied, because you and Mom and Brooke tried to hijack the vacation I spent 2 years planning and saving for. You didn't ask to join me, you demanded it. You expected me to pay for luxury accommodations for all of you. You made me feel selfish for wanting something for myself for once in my life." My father looked taken aback by my unexpected backbone. "We're your family," he said, but with less conviction. "Yes, you're my family. The same family that has always put Brooke's wants before my needs. The same family that missed my college graduation for a kindergarten play. The same family that never supported my education, but emptied retirement accounts for Brooke's down payment." With each example, my voice grew stronger. Years of therapy had prepared me for this moment, though I never expected it to happen in a Hawaiian restaurant. "I love you all, but I deserve this vacation. I earned it, and I'm not going to apologize for finally prioritizing myself." The restaurant had gone completely silent, all eyes on our confrontation. The manager stepped forward again. "Sir, I need to ask you to leave now. Our security team is on their way." My father looked around, suddenly aware of the audience. "This isn't over, Justina," he said before turning to leave. "Your mother will be hearing about this." As security escorted him out, I collapsed back into my chair, shaking uncontrollably. The manager approached with concern. "Are you all right, Ms. Sanders? Would you like us to arrange for a different room for your safety?" I nodded gratefully, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, please. And could you add additional security notes to my reservation?" "Of course. Your dinner is on the house tonight. I'm so sorry about this disturbance." Several nearby diners expressed their support, one older woman even coming over to pat my shoulder. "Good for you, honey," she said warmly. "I wish I'd stood up to my overbearing mother years ago." Back in my new room, I finally broke down completely, alternating between crying and feeling an unexpected sense of relief. I had finally said the things I'd been holding back for years. There was no going back now, but strangely, I didn't want to. I called Melissa again, recounting the confrontation through tears. "I'm so proud of you," she said fiercely. "This was long overdue." "What do I do now?" I asked. "You enjoy the rest of your vacation," she replied firmly. "You've earned it." The next morning, I accepted the hotel's offer to move me to their sister property nearby for the remainder of my stay. With the additional security measures in place, I began to relax again and reclaim my vacation. The final days of my Hawaiian vacation were bittersweet. After moving to the third resort, a charming boutique hotel tucked away in a quiet cove, I found a measure of peace again. The management had been incredibly understanding about my situation, even assigning a staff member to screen visitors to the property. My first day there, I sat on a secluded stretch of beach, watching the waves and processing everything that had happened. The confrontation with my father had been terrifying, but also strangely liberating. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself without backing down. Mind if I join you? A voice asked, startling me from my thoughts. I looked up to see Kakoa, one of the hotel's tour guides whom I'd met at breakfast. He was carrying 2 coconuts with straws. Fresh coconut water? He said, offering me one. Best natural hydration there is. I accepted gratefully, and we sat in comfortable silence watching the ocean. The hotel manager mentioned you had some family trouble, he said finally. I don't mean to pry, but if you need someone to talk to, sometimes a stranger is the best listener. Something about his kind, open face made me feel safe. Over the next hour, I found myself telling him the whole story from my childhood in Brooke's shadow to the vacation hijacking attempt and the restaurant confrontation. Kakoa listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or asking thoughtful questions. When I finished, he shared some wisdom that would stay with me long after the vacation ended. In Hawaiian culture, we have a concept called pono, he explained. It means righteousness, but also balance and harmony. Finding pono often means setting things right, even when it's difficult. What you did took great courage. It doesn't feel like courage, I admitted. Part of me feels guilty for deceiving them. The deception was a symptom, not the cause, he said gently. The real issue was that your family didn't respect your boundaries. Sometimes we need to create distance before we can build healthier connections. We talked for hours as the sun crossed the sky. Kakoa shared stories of his own family struggles and how he had found peace. His perspective helped me see my situation through new eyes. The remaining days of my vacation became a healing journey. Instead of hiding in fear, I embraced every experience: a sunrise hike to Haleakala, crater swimming with sea turtles, learning traditional lei making, and savoring quiet moments of reflection. I checked my phone only once daily, noting the evolving messages from my family. Their initial rage had given way to confusion, and from my mother, at least some tentative remorse. We should talk when you get home, read her most recent message. Perhaps we all overreacted. On my final evening in Hawaii, I sat on the beach watching the sunset and reflecting on everything that had happened. The vacation had become something entirely different from what I'd planned, yet somehow more meaningful. I had discovered a strength in myself I hadn't known existed. The flight home the next day gave me time to prepare for what awaited. I expected anger accusations and attempts to make me feel guilty, but something had fundamentally changed inside me. I was no longer willing to accept the role of family doormat. When I arrived at my apartment, I was surprised to find no one waiting to ambush me. Instead, there was only silence. My family had apparently decided on the cold shoulder treatment, a familiar tactic when they felt wronged. Over the next few days, I received calls and messages from extended family members who had heard versions of the story from my parents and Brooke. The accounts were predictably one-sided, painting me as having cruelly abandoned them in Hawaii after promising a family vacation. My Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, who had always been something of an outsider in the family herself, called with a different perspective. I wanted to hear your side, she said. Your mother is telling everyone you tricked them into going to Hawaii and then disappeared. I explained what had really happened, feeling a weight lift as I shared the truth. That sounds more like your mother, Aunt Carol said with a sigh. She and your father have always enabled Brooke at your expense. I've watched it happen your whole life, but never felt it was my place to interfere. Her validation meant more than I could express. Thank you for listening, I said, my voice thick with emotion. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, she replied. It's about time someone in this family stood up to them. A week after my return, I received a terse text from my mother announcing Sunday dinner as usual, with no acknowledgement of the Hawaii situation. It was their way of sweeping conflicts under the rug rather than addressing them directly. After considerable thought, I decided to attend. Avoiding them would solve nothing, and I needed to establish new boundaries face to face. Walking into my parents' house that Sunday, was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. The tension was palpable as I entered the dining room where everyone was already seated. "Nice of you to join us," my father said coldly. Brooke wouldn't meet my eyes, and the children seemed confused by the strained atmosphere. My mother busied herself serving food as if nothing was wrong. Halfway through the silent meal, Brooke finally spoke. "I think you owe us all an apology, Justina, especially the children. They were heartbroken." Instead of immediately defending myself or apologizing as I would have in the past, I took a moment to consider my response. "I'm sorry the children were disappointed," I said carefully. "But I'm not sorry for taking the vacation I planned and paid for. What happened was the result of all of you trying to take over something that was important to me without considering my feelings." "We were trying to create a family experience," my mother interjected. "No, you were doing what you've always done," I replied calmly. "Prioritizing what Brooke wants over what I need. That pattern has to stop." My father started to object, but I held up my hand. "I love all of you, but things need to change. I deserve the same respect and consideration that you give to Brooke. If that's not possible, then we need to reevaluate our relationship." The stunned silence that followed was broken by my young niece, Lily. "Auntie Justina, did you see any dolphins in Hawaii?" I couldn't help but smile at her innocent question. "I did, sweetheart. They were beautiful." The conversation gradually shifted to safer topics, though the tension remained. As I helped clear the dishes later, my mother approached me cautiously. "You seem different," she observed. "I am different," I confirmed. "Hawaii changed me, but not in the way you might think. It helped me realize I need to stand up for myself even with family, especially with family." She didn't respond directly, but I noticed her expression was more thoughtful than angry. Over the following months, my relationship with my family evolved slowly. Some changes were immediate. I declined, last minute, babysitting requests, stopped automatically agreeing to their demands, and made my expectations clear about how I wanted to be treated. Other changes took longer. My parents struggled to accept the new dynamics, occasionally testing my boundaries to see if I would revert to old patterns. Brooke alternated between cold shoulders and attempts to guilt me back into my former accommodating role. But I remained firm, maintaining the strength I had discovered in Hawaii. I continued seeing my therapist, who helped me navigate the challenging transition to healthier family relationships. 6 months after the Hawaii incident, some significant shifts had occurred. My parents began to show more interest in my life and career. Brooke occasionally acknowledged that she had perhaps taken my help for granted over the years. The relationship remained complicated, but there was progress. Not everyone adjusted well to the new boundaries. Some family members continued to view me as selfish or difficult. I learned to accept that not everyone would understand or support my journey towards self-respect. My relationship with Aunt Carol flourished, becoming a source of mutual support and understanding. She had walked a similar path years earlier and provided invaluable guidance. Most importantly, I continued prioritizing my own well-being. I planned another solo vacation without apology or explanation. I pursued hobbies and friendships that brought me joy. I created the life I wanted rather than the one my family expected. The journey wasn't easy or straightforward. There were difficult conversations, painful realizations, and occasional setbacks. But with each passing month, I became more comfortable in my newfound self-advocacy. The greatest lesson from my Hawaiian escape was that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Like Kakoa had explained about Pono, finding balance often requires disrupting unhealthy patterns. As I look toward the future, I know my family relationships will continue to evolve. Some bonds may strengthen with new respect, while others may fade as they're unable to adapt to healthier dynamics. Either way, I'm committed to maintaining the boundaries that protect my well-being. Family is important, but so is self-respect. The two aren't mutually exclusive, but they do require honest communication and genuine reciprocity. I'm no longer willing to sacrifice one for the illusion of the other. If you've ever struggled with family expectations or found yourself constantly putting others' needs before your own, I hope my story gives you courage. Setting boundaries isn't easy, but it's worth it. You deserve to prioritize your own happiness even when others try to convince you otherwise. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure or set difficult boundaries with loved ones? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's essential.